So my name is Logan Herring, I'm the CEO of REACH Riverside, Kingswood Community Center, and the warehouse. Gives me great pleasure to be here tonight, and also have my 2-year-old, LJ. Hi, buddy. So he's been exceptionally quiet. Hopefully he represents us as a unit today. So how many people have heard of the book or read the book, very short tale, The Eagles Who Thought They Were Chickens? Show of hands. Is that no one? Beautiful. It makes my job a lot easier because you can't tell if I messed up the story or not when I tell you, give you my rendition. So the story, it's a very short fable. It's the eagles who thought they were chickens. And in a land far, far away, there was a rich emperor who ruled the land, and everybody revered this king. And on his perch, he had an eagle that was equally loved by everyone in the kingdom. One day, invaders came to the land, and they took people, they took the eagle, put him on a ship, shipped him across the seas. During the course of that journey, the eagle passed away, the bottom of the ship. But before doing so, the eagle laid 3 eggs. And the shipmate went to the captain and said, "Look, the eagle passed, but I have 3 eggs. What do you want me to do with these eggs?" He said, "Put them in the coop with the chickens." So he puts them in the chicken coop. Get to America, they're in the chicken yard, and they hatch. And as soon as they hatch, they're being made fun of and ridiculed by all the chickens in the coop. And they're eagles, so they don't know any better. So they feel demoralized, they feel bad about themselves, their appearance. They feel like they're ugly, they feel like they're not worth anything. So about a year later, same invaders go back over to this land and take more people, and another eagle. But this eagle makes it through the journey. And he is again put into the yard with the chickens. And the eagle sees the 3 chickens, 2 boys, 1 girl. And he says, "My brothers, my sister, why are you sitting in the corner acting like you aren't what you are?" And they like, "What do you mean? Well, we're eagles. We're meant to soar the land." Now, when the eagles got there, their wings were clipped. This eagle, when he got there, his wings were clipped. Said, "We come from a land where we're loved and we fly all over and everybody loves us and we just soar the land and we're better than any ugly chicken." So the chickens didn't like that, and there were roosters in the coop that ran the yard. So they began to peck at this eagle, beat him up to the point where he couldn't fly if he wanted to. So again, the other eagles, they went off in their corner and they just tried to avoid any confrontation. So at one point, this eagle recovered. He got his strength back. His wings were ready to blossom again. And he began to flap his wings, and the eagles and the roosters started to laugh at him. But he flapped his wings, and before you know it, he had lifted himself up above the chicken yard, up onto the fence. And the other eagles were like, get down, you're going to get us in trouble." And he said, "I told you, we're eagles. We're meant to soar. We're not dumb chickens." So he said, "My brothers, my sisters, come join me. So the one brother, he flew, he tried, he flapped his wings, and he went up and he went down, and he went up and he went down. Then the sister, she did the same thing, went up and went down. And the other brother went up and went down, but they kept trying. Eventually, the boy and the girl ended up joining him on the fence. But the one boy that was left, they looked down and said, "Come on, my brother, join us." He said, "I can't join you." He said, "I'm just a dumb chicken and I'm not meant to fly." The point of that story is that too often, the people in the communities where I work in Riverside are often told that they're chickens when they're eagles. And they have so many barriers and so many people around them that tell them they can't do it, that they never think that they can do it. So in your life, I think that most people in this room, and I'm not going to make any assumptions, but I'm going to say if you're here tonight, you probably had eagles in your lifetime. That when you felt down about yourself or felt like you couldn't do anything, those eagles stepped up into your life and said, "No, you can do it. You can fly." And that's what we have to do for the people in our communities, especially those that don't have eagles. They don't have examples to show them that they can fly. These are eagles. These are my eagles at Kingswood Community Center. The most low-income neighborhood in the city of Wilmington, where 70% of our children live in poverty. But when I look at these children and these bright-eyed individuals who just this past year, 78% of our children that graduated our pre-K are kindergarten ready, I see eagles. That's what I see. So approach to community revitalization, where it's high quality mixed income housing, a cradle to college education pipeline, and community health and wellness. Now, I'll probably be the anomaly in the room as I usually am, and I don't mind pushing against the grain, but I know I'm here to talk about early childhood education, which I think is critical, and I think the people before me already made that case, so I don't have to do so. But I also think that when we are singularly focused and looking at early education, and we forget that this is a pipeline, we forget about the mothers that give birth to those children and how we need to support them. We forget about when those children grow up and they become teenagers. And then we drop the ball and we're not those eagles for them. And then we think about when they're young adults and not providing them with the guidance and access to college and career. We're dropping the ball. So we can't look at this just from an early education lens or perspective. We have to look holistically at how we provide a support system to make sure that the eagles in our communities actually take flight. So when we talk about REACH Riverside, we talk about the holistic model of redevelopment, education, and community health. You can't take advantage of the community assets if you're afraid to leave your home. You have to be a part of a healthy community where you can get out and walk and you can take advantage of the resources and the assets in the community. We can't talk about a holistic revitalization without addressing education from the cradle to the college and career. And then we talk about the housing stock. We have a neighborhood where everyone in the neighborhood was predestined to grow up there, where they were put there on purpose, where in, I believe, the 1970s, when there were federal laws that were passed and policies that made sure people looked like me didn't end up in neighborhoods where we're sitting today. And what people don't understand, or a lot of people don't know, that Riverside was actually full of white people after the war. Yeah, that's right, LJ, they were. And there are two major housing projects in Wilmington, Southbridge and Riverside. Southbridge was for the black veterans coming back from war. Riverside was for the white veterans coming back from war. And when whites had the ability to purchase homes in neighborhoods like this and blacks didn't, they then consumed that neighborhood of Riverside. And they've been stuck in that cycle of concentrated poverty ever since. So when we look at the children, when we look at the mothers, we look at their older siblings, we look at the young adults, they've never been told that they were eagles. They've always seen themselves as chickens. I look at my own life, and my mom is here to support me as she always has been. I had three major eagles in my life. My grandfather, who was one of the biggest philanthropic leaders that there ever was in the city of Wilmington, Reverend Otis Herring. He was a blind reverend. He grew up in North Carolina, and when he was a teenager, he was caught in a flood. And he swam home, got bacteria in his eyes, and eventually became blind. Moved to Wilmington, Delaware, started a church, Union Baptist Church, and began to do the things that I'd like to think that I'm somewhat doing today, where he made affordable housing available for low-income families, where he opened senior housing. He opened a daycare center that's named after my grandmother, Mary E. Herring. And when there was a civil rights movement and Jesse Jackson came to town, he stayed at my grandfather's house. Then there was my brother. My brother's 13 years older than me. He graduated from St. Mark's. He graduated from LaSalle. He started 3 IT companies and sold them. He does very well for himself. And I had him as an example. He paid for me to go to private high school. My grandfather paid for me to go to Wilmington Montessori, where my son is currently today at the age of 2. And then I had my mom, who has been there since before I was born, to get back to my original point. We think about our moms. We think about our parents. That's early education before it even happens. And my mom is here today, and she's holding my son. That's a cycle that never ends. But some people don't even get to make it to that cycle. So I think about the eagles in my life. I think about my mom. I think about my brother. I think about my grandfather. And now I have a new eagle who will never, ever think that he's not an eagle. So I don't know how many 2-year-olds you know that can sit here for an hour without an electronic device because we don't have service here. So trust me, I had the headphones ready and I had a backup plan. So now, luckily my mom stopped at the store, divine intervention. She got some dollar dinosaurs, and that's what he's playing with right now. His imagination is going wild. So we are now putting together what we like to call our cradle to college and career pipeline. And when we talk about making sure Eagles know that they're Eagles, and we talk about this pipeline, I would say most of the folks in this room had their own pipeline that was in their community, in their homes, but we don't, so we have to manufacture it. And we talk about a pipeline all the time, you know, early learning, then elementary, middle school, high school, college and career. But what is the insulation around that pipeline? So we're calling our insulation project. What are those services? Soft skills development, tutoring, recreational athletics, family engagement, mental health, work experience, job skills training, after school activities, case management, advocacy, jobs, housing, safety, collaboration with governmental agencies, the list goes on. And then we get more specific. Who are those agencies we're working with to deliver those services? So when those eagles realize they're eagles and they're ready to fly, they got some wind beneath their wings. So last but not least, it takes a village. And that's what I'm trying to say up here, is that it takes a village to raise eagles these days, especially in low-income communities where you have moms and dads that might be working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And if you're lucky to have a 2-parent household, they're probably on opposite shifts. And then how many overlaps do they have where they actually sit down as a family? Or are they at Kingswood where we have them until 9 o'clock and we're trying to provide meals and support for them? It takes a village. So when we think about early education, we think about Kingswood Community Center and our early learning center there. And then we realize that once they get paid past age 12 and they don't have purchase of care and the other funding models that are part of this model in our state, where we support our 12 and unders and then we literally throw them out into the cold when they're 13 and say good luck. We had to start something where we give attention to our teens, and that's the warehouse. We're now putting $3 million of renovations to the formerly Prestige Academy building, and we will open in January. We have 130 partners that we'll work with to make sure teens have a place to go. And then REACH Riverside is just kind of serving as that umbrella organization that makes sure that the resources are available, that the execution is done with fidelity, to make sure that, again, and I'm going to keep hitting home with this, that when our eagles hatch from those eggs, that they never believe that they're chickens. And when they become teens and when they become young adults, by that time they're soaring. And we're all looking up and say, you go Eagles, even though I'm a Cowboys fan. That's my time, and I thank you for your attention, and I thank you for having me.